right, and we're talking to Michael Linford, who's got a brand new book out, which is called Music for the End of the World, which is a fictional book. So when you come to write a book, where do you start? Where do you get all the ideas from? Most of us kind of say, don't we, especially after a couple of drinks, oh yes, I could write a book, that would be fantastic, but we don't actually get anywhere with it. Michael's been involved in poetry and now written his first book. We'll find out what the story's about, and we'll do that in just a moment. That's coming up on our 12 o'clock interview, but first the news.
About with Geoff Carter.
And today on our 12 o'clock interview, if only I put the right jingle in, that would be better. Anyway, I just realised, look, it's Friday. So anyway, we've got a fantastic guest today. We're talking to Michael Linford, who's just written a book which is called Music for the End of the World. Now, before we talk about the book and what the story's about and how you come to write it, you've also done some poetry before. So where did the interest in writing first start?
I think for me, dealing with different issues growing up, depression and just, I think the difficulties we all have growing up, I found I used poetry as an outlet for my emotions because I didn't really want to be talking to everybody about it and having an effect on other people's lives in a negative way. So it was my way of dealing with things was by writing it on paper and getting out. I mean, that would like therapy, kind of, really.
And the poetry is quite interesting, is it now? Because, you know, at one stage poetry, like, oh my goodness, you know, we don't want to get involved. You know, people had a kind of a, well, we don't really understand poetry, we don't want to get involved in it. But it's become really popular, hasn't it? And you've even got people now who go out and give poetry readings.
Yeah, that's something I think I'd like to do at some point. I've never really had the confidence. I think doing the novel this year has made me need to be put in more situations that I'd have felt uncomfortable with normally. And hopefully because of that, you know, I'll get the confidence to maybe do something more with the poetry in the future, because I would like to, because I think that maybe other people could get help from that like I did.
And poetry, when people do these kind of readings, is it a bit like a comedy club? We have several comedians together. Do you have several poets together? How do those kind of things work?
I think from what I hear, especially in London, it takes various different forms. You have some that just will be someone stood there reading. Some might be more like performance art, where there might be music and a backdrop. I think it depends how the poet feels and how they want to put their story across, I think.
So from there, you've written some poetry. That was the first stage, and then you've written a book now, which is called Music for the End of the World. So that's quite a challenge, isn't it, to actually fill up a novel? So where did the process start for you?
Well, funnily enough, it was last summer. Sat with a couple of friends. We were talking about the Mayan prophecy of the end of the world this year, and I'm such a person who's got a love for music that my response was, what music would you listen to if you knew the world was going to end? And it was literally just a throwaway conversation one summer afternoon, and it built from there. And by the end of the year, after a couple of trips to London, I had this idea that was itching to get out, basically.
So did you find then that you just had to get it onto paper? There was no stopping it?
Yeah. A lot of people say how many years they toil over novels. I really probably started actually writing it and getting it down in mid-January, February, and by June it had completed itself. It was quite frightening, the pace at which it came out, really.
Okay, we'll take a slight pause and we'll talk some more about the book in just a moment, so we'll find out what the characters are and how you go about creating characters and the process of writing a book, and we'll also find out more about the novel itself.
Geoff Carter in the afternoon. Hot Radio. Carter.
And today we're talking to Michael Linford, who's an author. He's just written a book which is called Music for the End of the World. And quite an interesting process, because I always imagine that most authors, it's quite a solitary process. You're sat on your own, maybe a computer screen in front of you, and you're getting your ideas out. But as you were developing the novel, you were actually asking people to basically send you songs and ideas. So if it was the end of the world, the kind of songs that they'd like to listen to. So which kind of people have actually responded?
Well, the very first person, musician, was Narina Palo, who I'm a huge fan of and is very in touch with her fans, which I think is amazing these days. I've also had lists from Rumour, who was interested, obviously, because she's fairly local. The Wombats was probably the biggest one that most people know. A lot of acts that were quite popular in the sort of Britpop era, like the lead singer of Gene, someone from Dodgy, Echo Belly, things like that. And I've even had some from musicians in the States.
So were you quite surprised when you were getting this such a wide reaction?
Yeah, I think part of it, originally I thought I was quite naive and thought I could just write to Ed Sheeran or Chris Martin and get a list back. It's been difficult getting through managers to get to the people, but the ones I have had back, I've been really chuffed with, and it surprised me in a sense to get any back in other ways.
Now, it's a central theme to the novel, so when people were suggesting these songs, did that in any way influence the way the novel went?
I think it was a good way of me seeing how people look at their lives. Very interesting. I mean, everybody that's done a list really has said that it's quite a cathartic experience. Some have chosen songs that remind them of people. I chose my 20 songs purely based on what I'd listened to at the end of the world, like a perfect end of the world soundtrack. And they're not my 20 favourite songs or linked to anybody, because for me I'd have the memories, so the music provided something else.
I mean, music's quite interesting because you can hear a lyric to a song, and you touched on something which is quite important about music. The lyric may say one thing, but in actual fact you may be reminded of a place or a time that has nothing to do with that lyric, but it's basically the association with the music itself, with the song.
Yeah, I think that's one of the things of the book, is that people have said, oh, but, you know, what if you're not into music? Because the book isn't just about music, I think music does provide a soundtrack to everyone's life. Otherwise, you know, radio wouldn't still exist, or, you know, CDs. It's not all digital. People will hear a song on holiday. It might be a song that they actually don't even like, but if they hear it again, they'll smile because it reminds them of the nice part of the holiday they had.
I mean, that's quite an interesting thing about music, isn't it? How it brings on its own meaning and interpretation. So tell us a little bit about the novel. Who's the main character?
The main character is a chap called Will, who is very much, he's based on a lot of my life experiences. Overall, I say he's a combination of hopes and fears, probably past, present and future of mine.
Okay, we'll take a slight pause and we'll have a little roundup after this song. We'll find out where we can get hold of the novel. It's Music for the End of the World. It's written by Michael Linford, and we'll have a roundup after this song from Tracy Chapman on Hot Radio. Last car.
Hot Radio. The 12 o'clock interview with Geoff Carter.
And we're talking to author Michael Linford about his book, which is called Music for the End of the World. It's a fascinating process that we've involved all these musicians. So do you see yourself, this is the first book, I'm jumping ahead here, but have you plans for the second one? Anything in the pipeline at the moment?
I'm halfway through one that I started a long time ago that I've picked up again, and I've actually started writing, I'm trying to create a book of short stories, which is going to be modernisations of Bible stories, of all things. So yeah, 2 ideas at the minute in the pipeline.
And very different from the novel. So it sounds as if you're obviously looking always to change things, looking for something new. And you were saying, it's interesting, so you say that you've also gained confidence from the process of actually having the courage to write the novel.
Yeah, I think there was quite a few people in my life that have said, what would you like to do with your life? And I've said, you know, I'd like to be a writer. Well, what would you actually like to do though? Because that's not a proper job. And I think that knocked me back a bit, but I was ready to write now, and I think having done it, I can see that I've done it. So it starts here rather than ends here.
That's it, at the beginning of it, you know, and you never know. I mean, there's people say it's not a proper job, but I mean, Stephen King would probably disagree.
Yeah, definitely, yeah.
So, the novel itself is called Music for the End of the World. Where can we get hold of it?
Well, it's out on the 20th of December. It will be on Amazon, online, Tesco's, WH Smith's, Waterstones. Basically, it should be any book online place. It's definitely, I've seen it already to pre-order on Waterstones and whsmiths.co.uk.
So you can pre-order the book, and the nice thing is it's you're a local author, so that's even better. And well, I wish you all the best with this one, and maybe so the next stages you might also think about the poetry, taking it out on the road.
Yeah, we'll see where it goes.
Yeah.
I'll try and get some of this under my belt, and then go from there.
Brilliant stuff. So we're talking to Michael Linford, and the book is called Music for the End of the World, and although it's out at the end of December, you can pre-order now, so why not get on board with a local author.
Hot Radio.
Times are tough.